Apple CarPlay is evolving into something very exciting. During Apple's WWDC 2022 keynote, they gave just under 4 minutes towards Apple CarPlay with a preview of what users can expect to see in its iOS update for CarPlay. They gave just under 4 minutes with a preview of what users can expect to see in its iOS 16 update for Apple CarPlay. CarPlay in iOS 16 will see the platform evolve into something I was never expecting or thought seemed possible. But it is happening, and I think it's going to give CarPlay an exciting future for in-car infotainment systems. First things first, what you see in their presentation will not be coming to a CarPlay system that is being driven today. What you see here with its multiple displays, customizable instrument clusters, super wide wraparound screens showing off widgets of trip information, calendar events and weather data, all of this jaw-dropping update goodness will be coming to new vehicles that will be releasing in late 2023 and most likely into 2024. So let's take a breath, calm down a little and plant our feet firmly into the ground for now. Apple has partnered with a number of major players in the auto industry to bring what I believe will be a new universal automotive infotainment platform, a little similar to their collaboration with Google and other smart home makers and their underlying platform called Matter for smart home hardware. Whatever Apple calls this underlying platform, it will allow automakers to build their vehicles to allow Apple full control of a vehicle's data and multiple displays to allow CarPlay to expand its reach beyond not just the single CarPlay display screen that we see today. I do believe some cars driving today will soon see a small taste of this integration, thanks to Apple allowing other developers access to a particular existing CarPlay feature in iOS 16. If you drive a modern CarPlay-enabled vehicle today, there may be a chance that in the center of your instrument cluster, you have seen some CarPlay data, such as turn-by-turn navigation from Apple Maps, appear in the center of this display. Currently, this only works for Apple's own Maps app, but in iOS 16, I believe we will see this be offered to developers of alternative navigation apps too. Similar to how Apple kept their home screen navigation panel all to themselves for at least a year, Apple will allow other navigation apps like Google Maps and Waze to send directions and metadata to the instrument cluster display in iOS 16. But just like the restrictions for the CarPlay home screen dashboard, it might be a number of months after its release in September or October before we see developers of third-party navigation apps implement this feature into other apps for iOS 16. So what will existing CarPlay owners get in iOS 16? Other than third-party navigation in the instrument cluster in more modern cars, we owners of current CarPlay vehicles have to look at what differences were presented in the main central CarPlay display during Apple's preview of iOS 16 for CarPlay. The first is some changes that we see in the dock. We currently have the CarPlay dock spanning the height of the left and right hand side edges of the CarPlay display, or in vehicles with portrait CarPlay displays, you may have it running along the bottom. In iOS 16, it looks like Apple will be making some major adjustments and behaviors to the CarPlay dock in their next update. Throughout Apple's presentation of CarPlay in iOS 16, we only see a horizontal dock on its main CarPlay display, and this is on a landscape ratio display that would usually show a side dock if it was using iOS 15. I personally think this was maybe a nicer way to present the new update, and that smaller displays will continue to show the left or right side dock. But inside the dock, Apple has made some further subtle changes, which could see its location change to the bottom of the screen entirely for all screen sizes. In iOS 16 for CarPlay, we see the time, battery and signal metadata has now been removed from the dock to make way for some new dynamic controls to adjust car-specific systems such as seat temperature or climate controls in supported compatible cars. We see the same app menu view button to the left of the dock, and there's a new focus mode button on the middle right side of the dock too. A new fourth car system select button joins the last 3 used app icons, which is likely to be used to select which car system based control you can adjust via the 2 dynamic toggle controls on either side of the dock. With the time, signal and battery metadata removed from the dock, we see Apple has repositioned them at the top of the display. And they also hover over the chosen background wallpaper, just like it would on your iPhone. We don't yet know if this treatment and position will also work alongside the original side dock for smaller displays, for example, or if this is how it will now be displayed across all screen sizes. On one home screen example, Apple shows this new status bar contained inside the main radio player app, and it does not overlay the new weather app panel that sits to the right of it. This makes me feel we could see the same status bar on smaller screens too, along with a more permanent horizontal dock. There is room for all of this on smaller displays, and it also allows CarPlay to show more app icons this way too, which helps also reduce interactions with less screen swiping between pages. We see that the home screen has changed a little too. Throughout most of the CarPlay presentation, the display is shown in a home screen mode, and only once at the very beginning do we see the app icon screen. And when we do, the Apple designers forgot to swap the dock icon button for the home screen icon. Oops. It looks like in iOS 16 we will see the home screen get even more customizable options, with at least a new widget panel for weather, as well as the usual navigation and now playing control panels. There is no sign of the Siri suggestions or nav contextual panels from today's CarPlay home screen, so seeing that I personally dislike and don't use or look at these two panels on the home screen, I welcome that decision. But I'm sure Apple will retroactively allow these panel options to remain present in the new home screen design. The new weather panel looks to mirror the same layout as the iPhone app itself, with current location and temperature, outlook, high and low temperatures, and a horizontal 5-hour forecast for the day. Personally, I feel that's all that you need whilst driving, except for a toggle to view a destination's location weather, so hopefully Apple allows you to swipe between saved locations on this panel. Apple will also be allowing 2 new app categories for CarPlay. The first is fueling app. Similar to the EV category for apps, this will allow developers of alternative fuel tracking apps on CarPlay, so expect petrol pricing comparison and location apps to be released once iOS 16 is launched. The second new app category is driving task apps. This category appears to be a little broader as to what apps we can expect in this category. To quote Apple's app guidelines for CarPlay, driving task apps must enable tasks people need to do whilst driving. Tasks must actually help with the drive, not just be tasks that are done whilst driving. Apple offers some very lightweight single screen examples of apps that work with car-based hardware, such as trailer height adjustment apps or an app that displays tire pressures, to apps that drivers may want to access, such as monitoring how many people you're transporting in a vehicle, to which type of trip the drive is for within a company car. This second category opens the doors to many other apps to appear on CarPlay, so I would expect a large variety of apps to appear on the App Store as soon as iOS has launched. Apple now has launched a CarPlay Simulator for its app development tool on the Mac. Developers can now plug in their iPhone to the Mac and run this simulator for faster debugging and development of CarPlay apps. This also gives anyone an easier way to view and demo CarPlay apps without jumping into a car or using the less optimized Xcode simulator. Anyone can run this simulator on the Mac, although an iPhone running iOS 16 is required, and it's a good way to check out CarPlay apps without draining a car's battery. This will work extremely well for previewing and viewing CarPlay apps with multiple display support too. So in short, this might be a much cheaper way than buying a whole new car if you just want to see how CarPlay behaves, along with multiple displays and resolutions in the car. To reduce time in generating and sending messages through Siri, messages can now be automatically sent after they've been read back to you. There is still a change button on screen, but without any interaction, your messages will be sent automatically without any further physical interaction. The podcast app in iOS 16 has had some changes too, where a new library has been added that allows you to find the latest episodes and browse saved podcasts that you follow. So overall, this is a positive new direction for CarPlay. I'm sure we will see it evolve over the coming months ahead of its final public release at the end of the year. Right now, Beta 1 of iOS 16 shows only changes in Apple app functionality, and none of the traits or design changes that I've mentioned earlier is present right now. Those seeking a full takeover of CarPlay customization for multiple displays and instrument clusters are in for a much longer wait. With supported vehicles not releasing until the end of 2023, it won't be until we are well into 2024 before we see this being early adopted and used more commonly in new vehicles. I'm sure some automakers are a little hesitant on how much control Apple is allowed here, as it will cast the automaker's own visual displays and prompts to the side, but one thing's for sure, I feel that the whole car industry needs a boost in its infotainment and instrument design, such as this, to breathe new life into today's car infotainment and displays. And who better than Apple's own design team that can attempt to try to achieve this. If their vision that was presented at this year's WWDC is anything to go by, CarPlay fans are in for a real treat over the next few years. So if you wish to jump in with full CarPlay integration, you best start saving for that 2024 car right now. Alright, thanks for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this outlook on iOS 16 for Apple CarPlay. If you have, please hit that like button. If you want to see more CarPlay features like this, hit that subscribe button down below to catch all my future content. Send me a super thanks if you'd like to support this channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.